Welcome back to Kind Heart Homestead, everyone. I just got back here to our off-grid property in the mountains of Virginia, and I'm just kind of taking a look at things. Looks like the stuff I did last time is still here, which is good, but that's pretty much to be expected unless there was like a huge storm or something to come through. Anyway, I was surprised to find there's water still in the plumbing system that I use just kind of to check for leaks. Let me show you. I don't know how well you can see that, but the inspector told me I needed a 10-foot vertical pipe full of water. Well, before I do all that, I wanted just to check the basics before I start backfilling over all the fittings. You can see behind me I left a coupling exposed, and every time I would slide my finger underneath last time I was up here, I would get some moisture on the finger. Not enough to drip. There was never any drips or standing water underneath the fitting. But this time when I came back, I ran my fingers under it and it's completely dry. So I'm not sure if I should replace it or not. But I do need to put the last few fittings over where the toilet's gonna go. I didn't have this last time, but I believe this is a 22-degree bend. I think it's half of a 45, so like 22.5. I need to pivot it just slightly to get the toilet drain in the right spot before it turns vertical. So I'll have to work on that a bit. I might have to drain the water out of the plumbing to work on that. Right now I have a test plug in the end of the toilet line, and I will need to cut that line. So I haven't decided yet if I'm gonna take the test plug out at the bottom and drain it into a hole, or just cut it and then let it drain, and not drain all the water, just drain it down to the point where I need it drained. But that's it for now. I'm gonna get to work. So during this process, I like to recapture as much water as I can because I have to haul it up from down the hill near where the creek and the spring are. But what I'm doing here is I'm basically just cutting a sliver less than an inch off of this pipe just to test the next fitting location, because if I cut too much off, I can't really regrow the pipe. But if I cut a sliver off at a time, I can gradually move this fitting into place so the toilet will have the appropriate clearance away from the wall. So making my way over to the conduit sleeves, if you remember from the previous episode, I stubbed in these elbows, but I had to go to the store to purchase some extensions to allow the fitting to get above the concrete slab so no concrete gets into the fittings. I'm preparing now to seal around my conduit pipes with expansive spray foam. So I'm shaking vigorously for about a minute, and then I'll show you what's next. All right, I think I'm ready for the final leak test. So I need to add a 10-foot pipe on top of this, and I just hope I can reach it with the watering can to fill it up. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to go buy some sort of pump to hook up to a hose. So let's get gluing. All right, so behind me is the 10-foot 2-inch pipe that I glued to the top of my 3-inch stub out. So you can see that the 3-inch pipe goes above the slab, probably about a foot, and then I reduce it down. Well, that reducer is not going to be there in the final design. I'm going to have some sort of maybe double Y connector so I could connect a sink and the laundry from 2 different sides, something like that. But none of that has to be done now because that'll be in the framing later on. So I'll cut the 3-inch pipe off, which will include that reducer and then the 2-inch pipe that goes up. And then I'll probably reuse different parts of the scrap to route my vent pipes, the vent plumbing pipes, up through the framing and then preferably out the sidewall. If I can avoid putting penetrations in the metal roof, I would like to do that. So anyway, I filled this to the top. I think maybe I should bungee cord it to the ladder just for the night in case there's high winds or something. But I want to probably have an overnight with this full pressure test so that in the morning I can see if there's any leaks before I cover the pipe with the dirt and the 2-inch foam insulation. I'm in the process of doing the final grading for this center area, and that includes supporting and covering the pipe. I didn't really dig low enough to completely cover the whole pipe, so basically I'm just grading the sand back into the trench around the pipe to protect it from the sides and the bottom, but the top protection will be from the 2-inch foam boards that'll act as insulation between the ground and the slab. So I'm gonna get started on that now. Well, everyone, my trip was a total success. Basically, I've been struggling to get the plumbing all done, and I didn't show this, but I had a very slow leak at the coupler for the main 3-inch waistline. It would have been under the slab, so I knew that that would be an issue. I just couldn't tell for sure if it was condensation or an active leak. So I dug underneath it so I could put a piece of paper under there, and then I would check the paper from time to time to look for drips. And eventually I timed it, and it was like 1.5 minutes per drip. Very slow leak. I wouldn't have caught it unless I was there watching for it and testing for it. So I cut that out and replaced it, and redid the pressure test, and then I held it for 24 hours. I still have the 10-foot thing up there. I refilled it with water. And you know, that filling is a pain without running water. My right shoulder is totally messed up. It's just so tight, tighter than it usually is. Because I have to walk up the ladder with a watering can in my right hand, fully extend my arm, and pour it in. Anyway, I say it's a success because the inspector just left. He was nice enough to come early. And that's good for me because I need to get out of town, drive back to South Carolina. But he was here and said a lot of my stuff is overbuilt, which I knew. The main thing is the width of my footing. I was subject to the width of the bucket of the tractor that I rented, and that thing was over 12 inches wide, so this footing is unnecessarily wide. He told me that they don't really require a insulated slab like I'm doing it. It's more common up north. But because of the lithium batteries that are going to be housed in this building, I need to make sure they don't freeze. So I'm a bit more concerned than the average shed builder. So just a couple things he told me to work on. Maybe just take a picture of them and send it to them before the concrete's poured. First of all, I have to get rid of the rocks that are holding up the rebar. And I've seen it done on YouTube, or people just throw bricks or whatever they find But the actual product, I believe it's called Adobe, and you're supposed to get the specific version of it for however high you need your rebar to sit. But my top course of rebar is hanging down from my form boards with wire. And I asked him if I could just hang the bottom rebar from the top rebar. And he said that's fine. It doesn't need to be any higher than it is now on the rocks. So I can wire it just as it is and then take those rocks out and it'll be fine. The other thing is I might need to remeasure some of these anchor bolts. I thought I had them all right. He did a quick measurement just of one of them, and it looked a bit too far from the corner. So I'll have to take a look at that in my drawing. What I suspect happened is he doesn't know where my bottom plates are going to sit. Obviously, you're not going to cut miters into your bottom plates to tie them in at 45-degree angles of the corner. You're going to have one going outside of the other. So I think the reason that that bolt looked too far from the corner is because this wall is going to take up at least 3.5 inches before that next board edge. So I'll have to check my design to double check that. But it's not the worst thing to have wrong because you can always add tapcons later. You just need a tool, I guess, good enough to drill that hole into the concrete. So the third and I believe final issue was that my free-floating toilet, line, I guess you could call it, it's not supported by anything. And after adding all that water, it's kind of settled. So I need to prop that back up to have a correct fall. He said it's actually falling in the opposite direction, and I believe it's from the settling with the water. So I need to maybe get a piece of rebar or something that I can keep under the concrete permanently. That's gonna hold that up, prop it up into the right position. So I don't think I'm gonna tackle any of this stuff on this trip. Everything's soaked. I just need to pack up and head out. But hopefully, my next trip, I'll be doing some concrete. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, and make sure you subscribe and like this video so you can keep up to date with our future build projects.